What is up, guys? It is your favorite host, Christopher Renne from Pints at the Round Table, The Chris Renne Show, and Chris R Talks on YouTube. Thanks for listening and thanks for engaging with me online. It's much appreciated, and I love all of your feedback. Make sure you follow me and the page online, on Instagram at Chris Renne MB and Twitter at Chris Renne MB. And then follow M-Basement Prod on Twitter and Instagram at M-Basement Prod, and like us on Facebook at Mom's Basement Productions. Thank you and enjoy the show. Welcome, and it is your host, Christopher Renne. It's episode 45. We're here. Get used to it. Let's keep it rolling into the summer. So let's think about what's going on in the sports world. What is there really? There is the NBA playoffs, which are starting to come to an end. I'll be talking about that today. There was a volatile interview by a famous former NBA player and basketball president. And most importantly, I said something controversial on Twitter that got a lot of fans of a lot of teams rubbed the wrong way. What was it that I said? Okay, so we're going to have to go back in time on the internet. I was on Twitter and I saw an interesting tweet. I started off the joke and I was going to put every single team but the New England Patriots. Then I decided to up the game a little bit and pick some more teams, than just that. Let me find the tweet real quick. So, this football page, this fantasy football page, 360 Degrees Fantasy Football on Twitter, said, name a team that's a lock to not win the Super Bowl this season. I'll start Browns. So I took the question pretty seriously, even though it was an attack on my favorite team, and said locks not to win. And I said Cardinals, Jaguars, Titans, Ravens, Bengals, Cowboys, Bears, Packers, Chargers, Giants, Redskins, Lions, Raiders, Broncos, Buccaneers, 49ers, Falcons, Panthers. And then I said teams that can win. Patriots, Steelers, Browns, Rams, Saints, Eagles, Seahawks. Well, it got more comments than likes, so that's how you know it was controversial. No one liked it and everyone had an opinion. I don't want to go on record and say this, but I do a lot of research on the topic, and I watch a lot of shows that give me a lot of different statistics, and it allows me to formulate a pretty well-rounded, holistic opinion. Keeping my ear to the ground is a major key to this success, as I read about multiple teams and multiple stories every day, to the extent that most people would find bothersome and annoying. Unlike a lot of things, I tend to retain sports information better than most, and I don't fully understand it. So, today, for my audience, I decided to break down the NFL teams into 3 tiers. Tier 1, potential Super Bowl champions. Tier 2, real hopefuls, but not going to win the Super Bowl. And Tier 3, not a chance. So I'm going to start with the no chance tier. Just get it out of the way, cut it out real quick. We're going to go no chance, and I'm going to give you one reason why these teams have no chance. Some of them are jokes, some of them are serious, but in reality, they're just not going to win it. To start, I will go with the Detroit Lions. The Lions are bad, and they didn't do much to get better. Matt Patricia's not a great coach. And most importantly, they are in Detroit, so they're not going to win the Super Bowl. Next, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Signed Nick Foles, have a pretty solid secondary. Don't mind their coach and Doug Marrone, but The culture in Jacksonville is too much based in losing, and winning a big game may not come easy in Jacksonville because, well, they're Jacksonville. Next, the Miami Dolphins. I like the Dolphins. I really do, but they have cut a lot of their roster away and gotten younger. They're sort of doing the NFL's equivalent to tanking, and they got Josh Rosen, and hopefully Rosen works out for them, or they're going to be bad for 5 to 10 more years. Look for the Dolphins, if Rosen is not good, to end up taking Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Herbert with that number 1 pick in the NFL draft. The New York Football Giants. The Giants are a disaster. I really don't like anything they've done. The Daniel Jones pick's just the tip of the iceberg. You look at what Dave Gettleman's done. He seems to not know anything about football at all, and I really think he's lost. And if the Giants end up being good, well, phenomenal for them. But with what it looks like, trading away their most talented player, trading away Olivier Vernon, one of their best defensive players, it's really starting to look like the Giants are throwing in the towel. Sticking with Eli is a bold decision, and drafting Daniel Jones was even bolder. If some of you have seen on the internet, there is a picture of Daniel Jones and Eli Manning side by side, and they look absolutely identical. Which, if he's anything close to Eli Manning, they'll win a Super Bowl. If he's what I and many think he is going to be, they're going to be bad for a while. It's going to waste Saquon Barkley's talent, and I'm not excited to watch the Giants this year. The Jets, still on Tier 3, no chance to win. Have you seen what's going on? The Jets and Adam Gase have moved on from their former GM. It was a disastrous move. There was a major power struggle. Mike McCagnon, if you ask any Jets fan, wasn't very good. But he seemed to be getting these last couple drafts right. I really like what they did. Signing Le'Veon Bell was good, but then you hear that Adam Gase doesn't like Le'Veon Bell, and they're probably going to trade him. It's not a good sign. There's no real cohesiveness. There's not really any good going on there right now. They play the Patriots twice a year. I don't think it's going to be very, very good for them. So the Jets have no chance to win the Super Bowl this year. The Oakland Raiders are next on this list. Too much going on. Not a big Derek Carr guy. Derek Carr has shown time and time again that he's good but not great. You need to be great to win Super Bowls at quarterback, and he's not the guy. Getting Antonio Brown was a bold move. I really do like what the Raiders did in the draft. It's going to take a couple more drafts like that to create a new culture of winning in Oakland from this disastrous one. I think Antonio Brown was a good move at first, but then you see him still phoning in beef with the Steelers. It doesn't seem like he's over it. It seems like he's still bitter. And I don't think that bodes well for a productive season. So next on the list was Raiders. They don't have a chance to win the Super Bowl. Moving forward, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tier 3. Jameis Winston is the reason. They could be Tier 2 if Jameis Winston miraculously grows into a Pro Bowl level quarterback, which is very possible under Bruce Arians, but what talent do the Buccaneers have around him? Mike Evans, very good player. Has he translated to wins? Absolutely not. You look at their running back situation. What's going on there? You know, they just got rid of Gerald McCoy. I really do like the move for Devin White. Jason Pierre-Paul, it might be out for the season. I do really like their tight end O.J. Howard. He was a fantasy monster. Cameron Brate's really good as well. But do you think this team has what it takes to win a Super Bowl? I do not. I do think they're getting better. I do think they are one of the teams here that made some moves. And if Jameis Winston can take some steps forward to become a productive quarterback in the NFL, the Buccaneers realistically can move to that Tier 2. Next, and no, I did not do this on purpose. This magically happened. In Tier 3, the Tennessee Titans. My line for it is Mariota is not who we thought he was. I like Marcus Mariota. I think he's a great dude, but there's some stuff he needs to start doing on the football field to translate these to wins. Now you look at the Titans roster. It's not the greatest. I like Marcus Mariota. Derrick Henry's really good. Corey Davis needs to be better. That's for sure. Malcolm Butler gets torched for a living. I really like Deion Lewis. I really like Adoree Jackson. I really like their makeup on defense, but offensively, I just don't think they have what it takes to win a Super Bowl. I'd love to see them compete. I think their ceiling is a wild card team. I think they have two teams in the division that are just way significantly better than them. So, yeah, the Titans are in Tier 3. Next, the Washington Redskins, too many problems. Alex Smith breaking his leg. I don't think Case Keenum's a playoff caliber quarterback. The Redskins are just a mess. There's nothing really going good for them right now, and it's sad to say. Next, the Cincinnati Bengals. As long as you have Andy Dalton, you could expect to be the third best team in the AFC North at best. I think the Browns and Steelers are going to be better than the Bengals for sure this year. Then I think the Ravens will probably be as well. I'm not a big Lamar Jackson believer, so that's the only reason I'm skeptical on the Ravens. But the Bengals themselves, let's talk about them. Andy Dalton, I really like the Bengals receiving core. I think Zach Taylor's a really good young offensive mind. He's apparently the next Sean McVay, but that's going to be hard to find. Weapons-wise, I like John Ross. I like A.J. Green. Joe Mixon's really good. Tyler Boyd was one of my fantasy sleepers last year when he got hurt. Almost saved my season. Defensively, sort of same old. They've got talent, but will they be disciplined enough to not make those stupid penalties that change games? You never know. If I ask my friend Swanson, the answer is probably going to be no. They did get Vontaze Burfict out. I do like the draft they had. I think the players they added will make them a better team. I think the AFC North is going to be a really competitive division, but they can't win the Super Bowl. Cardinals, bad. Bills, bad, but better than Bengals and Cardinals. I like what the Bills did this offseason. But can they win the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. They are in the no chance for reasons of many. They're Buffalo, and they have bad luck in the Super Bowls historically. I think Josh Allen's going to regress this year. If he gets better, great. I don't think he will. I think he's going to be the same player as last year. I think he's going to run too much. I don't think he trusts his accuracy. We've talked about the Bills as some of the best offseason movers in the Chris Renne show before, and I do think they're going to be better, but I don't think they're going to win it. So that takes me to Tier 2. The real hopefuls, but not going to win. Once again, I'm going to take you through the reasons they're not, and I'm going to say some good things about the teams. Because I think right now there's a lot of parity in the NFL from 2 to 22, and then there's about 9 teams who could absolutely not win enough to be thought of. And there's just teams, you look at them, you're like, that team just can't win a Super Bowl. So, Tier 2, the real hopefuls, but not going to win. I'm going to start top to bottom. The first one, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have a great defense. They have a great running back. They now have Amari Cooper and one of the best offensive lines in football. So why are they not in potential Super Bowl champs, that category? They're not in that category because of the one and only Dak Prescott. Time and time again, Dak Prescott's been the safe and valuable option. He could win 10, 11 games each year as a quarterback, and the team is very stable with him under the helm. His lowest lows higher than most quarterbacks, but his highest highs are much lower than many of the best. He's got a high floor, but a very low ceiling in comparison. And low ceiling quarterbacks aren't usually the type of guys who win Super Bowls. I like Dak Prescott. He's going to get paid. He's a good dude. But he's the reason the Cowboys won't get it done. He's too predictable. The Dak and dunk is real. Once he gets into big moments like last year in the playoffs, it will come up short. I really, really enjoy watching Ezekiel Elliott run the football. It's been one of my favorite hobbies since the beginning. But there's just teams that are better than them. I think the Rams will do it again. I think the Seahawks are going to be better this year. And with that being said, I don't think the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. But they're a real hopeful. They're a real hopeful. Next, the Kansas City Chiefs. New players on both sides. The addition of Tyrann Mathieu on the defensive side is really great for them. Will it be enough to make one of the worst defenses in the NFL better? I think they lost a lot on that side of the ball. Offensively, they lose both Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill more than likely for the season. Kareem Hunt's now in Cleveland, suspended 8 games. You could probably see Tyreek Hill getting suspended 9 to 10 games, depending on how this turns out. Maybe even worse. But in all honesty, I don't think the Chiefs got better this offseason. I really don't. I think they got worse. I think you could see them winning 11 or 12 games still this year, but I don't think they have the fortitude. I don't think they can win the Super Bowl this year. So they are real hopefuls, but once again, not going to win. Next on the list, the San Diego Chargers. And my biggest argument for this one is they had their best team in almost a decade last year. They won 13 games and got second in their division. Their division did not get any easier this offseason. Did the Chargers get better? Yes. But winning more than 13 games is hard. And Phillip Rivers is a great quarterback, and of all the quarterbacks left that are old and deserve a ring, I think he's on the top of the list. Being a guy from Southern California, a lot of my friends are Los Angeles Chargers fans. But the history in Los Angeles and the history that was in San Diego isn't great when it comes to big moments. Tom Brady's always going to get the better of Phillip Rivers. It's just what it is. Even the one chance Phillip Rivers had, he hurt his knee. I think the Chargers were plagued with injuries last year. I think Austin Eckler played out of his mind. I think Melvin Gordon's phenomenal. I love Keenan Allen. He's one of my favorite receivers in the league. Their offensive line's not getting worse, and their defense got a little better. But just the difference between 13 wins and 11 wins is not much, and they had a lot of close games this year. I think some of those games flip, and they go 11-5. Still good. I don't think they win the division, though. And I think having to play a wild card game and then probably having to play the New England Patriots will end up being the death of the Chargers once again. It doesn't matter who you line up in that uniform across from New England. New England has their number. So as long as they don't have to play New England, they've got a shot. So they're in the real hopefuls, but not going to win the Super Bowl. Next on the list, my own Cleveland Browns. This is how you know it's not a biased list. I've done a lot of research on this topic. The Browns made some beautiful moves. I probably know more about these moves than any other team I'm talking about. The Browns added Sheldon Richardson, Olivier Vernon, Odell Beckham Jr., Kareem Hunt. But with a first-year head coach and the likelihood of a sophomore slump for Baker Mayfield, the team who won 7 games last year went 7-8-1. Had a chance for a winning record. Was phenomenal. Was one of the best years as a sports fan in my life. And they didn't even go 500. The Browns struggled a lot on the road last year, going 2-6. So they're going to have to improve in that category. I really do realistically think the Browns could win 9 or 10 games. And a 2-game improvement in the NFL is nothing to scoff at. I think the Browns are really about to take the turn and become a perennial contender. But before a great team truly becomes great, you need to have some heartbreak. You need to have some trials and tribulation. A lot of people are like, that's the 0-16 team. Well, yes, the 0-16 team was all heartbreak. The 1-15 team before that was heartbreak as well. This is a new team entirely, a new management. John Dorsey was not there in the 0-16 and the 15-1 or 1-15 seasons. Neither was Freddie Kitchens. Neither were most of the players that are going to be stepping on the field for the Browns this year. This team hasn't been down, and that means it can't be up. And I love the Browns more than anyone, but when you look at what Odell Beckham brings, he may take you from a 7-win team to an 8-win team. I think he's good for a game. But when you think about it, Baker Mayfield struggled on the road, struggled once it got colder away from home. That's just the truth. He struggled against good teams. You can't look at that and think he's just going to drastically improve. He's going to be better eventually. But those really good teams are really good for a reason. And I think it's all on Baker Mayfield's shoulders where this team goes. Because I know Nick Chubb's going to be good. I know when Kareem Hunt gets back, he's going to be good. I know Odell Beckham's going to be good. Antonio Callaway's been showing out in training camp. The defense is stacked top to bottom, but do the Browns know how to win? I don't think so yet, but I think they're ready to get there. Next, Tier 2 real hopefuls not going to win on the list, the Ravens. I'm going to be honest, their defense is phenomenal. There's a reason they won the division last year, and it was 1,000% their defense. The Ravens roster is filled with good players. It really is. I like them. I like the Ravens a lot. Signing Earl Thomas is a good move. Mark Ingram, adding him to the fold. Their defense with Jimmy Smith as the DB, Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Williams, Tony Jefferson, very solid in the defensive backfield. Their linebacking core is one of the better ones in the league from top to bottom. They add Willie Snead. They add so many guys outside of it. Seth Roberts, on offense. I'm not a believer in Lamar Jackson as a thrower of the football. And we all know how the NFL works when you can't throw the football downfield late in the season and in December. The Ravens in 2018 in the playoffs wasn't pretty to me. You look at what they did. They lost to the Chargers. It was a very good defensive game, but like I said, a lot of teams got better, and they got better as well, but did they get good enough to beat the Chargers? This year, probably not. I think they're the third best team in the AFC North. I think their defense is great. I think offensively they're going to have some challenges to overcome with their one-dimensional offensive system. There's no way you could run the ball 45, 50 times. 15 of those with Lamar Jackson and keep him healthy and win games. It just doesn't make any feasible sense in the long term. And if you're going to try to win the game with him throwing the football, you're going to run into some challenges because he's limited in accuracy and arm strength. So the Ravens, real hopefuls, but not going to win. Next on the list, the greatest, Philadelphia Eagles, the potential Super Bowl champs every year, everywhere but Philadelphia. Everywhere in Philadelphia, but not everywhere. That's what I meant to say. The Eagles, I don't think they're going to be consistent enough, and I don't think they're consistent enough with Carson Wentz at quarterback. Carson Wentz went either 4-5 or 5-6 last year. I can't actually remember the stat. Then hurt his back. And then Nick Foles once again played really awesome down the stretch, which really changed the way the Eagles saw Nick Foles and the rest of the league did. Nick Foles is a more consistent. His ceiling's not near what Carson Wentz can. Carson Wentz has a better arm. Carson Wentz is a better athlete. Carson Wentz can make plays that Nick Foles couldn't dream of making. But Carson Wentz doesn't do the little things as good as Nick Foles, and those will come with more age and experience in the NFL, and I really like Carson Wentz, but this year is going to be a little different than the years before. It's all on Carson Wentz's shoulders. They're going to be fine, but they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. They don't have that same magic that Nick Foles brought. BDN's gone. He's in Jacksonville. That's unfortunate for him, but the Eagles, real hopefuls, not going to win it. Now here is where I actually didn't really have any trouble with this team. The Colts, the Indianapolis Colts. I love Andrew Luck. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. But you look at their roster. Let's see what they've got going on for them. Andrew Luck, great. Darius Leonard, can't even put into words how good he was last year. I like T.Y. Hilton. Their offensive line's getting better. Eric Ebron was phenomenal. They have one of my favorite players in college football when he was there in Malik Hooker. Marlon Mack came onto the scene, was phenomenal. Can Marlon Mack build off what he did last year? We'll see. There's a reason not many people knew who he was. Can he continue to prove how good he is? They made the move for Justin Houston, which is an awesome move. Spencer Ware's now there. Pierre Desir was better. Naheem Hines isn't a bad backup running back. They're loaded top to bottom, I think, in a lot of ways. But defensively, besides Darius Leonard, they don't really have a true star. And I think offensively, Andrew Luck can do so much, but I still don't think he has a true go-to big target. I really liked what they did with Moncrief last year, but I don't really see that on this team's roster. I don't see them having what it takes to get there. I do think they're probably going to win the AFC South. Personally, I like them a little more than the Texans because I think Andrew Luck's a little bit more consistent than Deshaun Watson, and I really like Deshaun Watson, but I don't think they have what it takes to win the Super Bowl, so they're a real hopeful, but they are not going to win. Next, the Panthers, Cam Newton, plain and simple. I think they have one of the better rosters in the NFL. I think adding Eric Reed really changed their defense. Last year, I think Christian McCaffrey is one of the best players in the league. Luke Kuechly, obviously a monster. Greg Olson's one of the best, most consistent tight ends in the league. I really enjoy Chris Hogan. But then you look at the receivers. Torrey Smith's pretty old. I don't know much about Rashad Moss. Curtis Samuel's going to have to take a step up from last year and continue growing into a true wide receiver. He was an H-back at Ohio State, so he had to catch the ball, but he was more used for his athleticism. They have a decent offensive line. It doesn't, wow you, on their defensive line's probably their best position group non-quarterback. So I really like that. They have a lot of talent. But I don't think they have Super Bowl winning talent or coaching, and I like Riverboat Ron, but it's just not going to happen this year. Real hopeful, not going to win. And they're also in a very tough division, so they're going to beat each other up quite a bit, that NFC South. So, moving forward from the Panthers, we're going to stay in the NFC South. The New Orleans Saints, we saw it last year. If the Saints aren't going to play every single game in the Superdome, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. Even inside, you sort of saw it at the end of the year, and yes, they got screwed. Yes, with that nickel Roby Coleman, that was pass interference. absolutely they got screwed. They got screwed over so much in that game. But Drew Brees is getting older. You saw Drew Brees' arm strength kind of fall off at the end of the season. I think losing Mark Ingram is going to be a lot more vital than people think it's going to be. Mark Ingram was such a consistent force for the New Orleans Saints these last couple years that he just can't really be taken for granted. I love Alvin Kamara. I love Michael Thomas. Taysom Hill, if you don't know who he is, he's that super buff white dude who wears number 7. He's a backup quarterback, but he's sort of their do-it-all guy. Yeah, great. Marshawn Lattimore is great. Adding Lil Jordan Humphrey, I like him a lot. They've been very inconsistent at receiver. You never really know, and Drew Brees has still been that good. Besides Michael Thomas, who else do they have really? I'd honestly argue that Taysom Hill's been their second best playmaker outside of Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. I like Jared Cook a lot. He had sort of a wasted year last year in Oakland. He was Aaron Rodgers' favorite tight end in Green Bay. They have a lot of speed with Ted Ginn. Cameron Jordan, phenomenal. One of the best two-way defensive linemen in the game, where he could defend against the run and rush the passer. All in all, they have a really good team. I think they're going to be good this year. I honestly think they'll win the NFC South this year. It's either going to be them or the Panthers. And that gets me on to the next real hopeful, but not going to win the Super Bowl sort of deal, and that's the Falcons. I think the NFC South is very quarterback reliant on how they're going to be successful, and that still stands true with the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan is one of those high floors, but not a very high ceiling guy. His ceiling was that 28-3 lead against New England, and that was the Atlanta Falcons' ceiling, and they went to their floor really quick during that same game. They're going to have to be better at getting Julio Jones the football. The emergence of Calvin Ridley really helped them out last year. Keanu Neal is one of my favorite safeties in the NFL. They have very good running backs. Really, I mean, their defense is going to be very similar to last year. That's Dan Quinn's sort of MO. He's a great defensive coach. He was part of those teams that won the Super Bowls. They have a very good offensive line, and they're going to continue to have a really good offensive line. Tight end, I had Austin Hooper on my fantasy team. He was usually good for a touchdown. They signed Ohio State's Michael Bennett to their team, so that's good for them. I think their roster's pretty good, but do you really hear any of those names? This was my thing when I was looking up what the Falcons have. And do you think Matt Ryan could elevate this team enough to win a Super Bowl? Could you look me into the eyes and hear the names I've said and think, yeah, you know what? I think the Falcons have a Super Bowl team. Offensive line, good. Quarterback, good. Julio Jones is the only exceptional talent that team has. And a receiver is not going to make you win the Super Bowl. They can help. They can really help, but they're not going to be the difference, you know. Next on the list, contender, but not going to win. Real hopeful is not going to win. We're going to continue Tier 2 with the Minnesota Vikings. Sorry, my good friend Ben Hathcock. Your team doesn't have what it takes. I like Kirk Cousins. He's one of my favorites. I'm going to root for Kirk Cousins until I'm in the grave. Stephon Diggs, good. Adam Thielen, good. Dalvin Cook, good. Harrison Smith, one of my favorites. Xavier Rhodes, one of the best corners in the league, a little overpaid. Offensive line needs to be better. Needs to be a lot better this year. They got abused, and I know for a fact that Kirk Cousins was running around a little too much for Kirk Cousins. Their offseason moves were not very surprising. I think getting Anthony Barr back from the Jets was the biggest one, and keeping him in the fold was what I think was needed for them this offseason. He's an ultra talent. He's one of those players who changes games. I think the Vikings have a very good roster makeup, but I think the NFC North is just one of those really, really tough divisions. At the top, they have 3 teams that are very capable of winning it, and the NFC is very, very balanced from top to bottom as a whole. Because if you haven't heard, I mean, you've got the Cowboys, you've got the Eagles, Panthers, Saints, Falcons. Then you have in your own division the Packers with Aaron Rodgers and the Bears with that defense. That's going to be tough. I mean, you look at the Vikings schedule, and there's a big reason I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, and their schedule is a big part of it. They start with the Falcons, then they play the Packers in Green Bay. The Raiders should be a coin flip for them. Then they play the Bears in Chicago. So you just look at their first 4 games, and if they come out of that 500, that's actually a really good start to the year. Because then they have the Giants in New York, which is very winnable for the Vikings. But it looks like a schedule that's more likely 8-8 than 10-6, or it could go either 6-10, 6-10, or 10-6. So I don't think there's a lot of in between here for them. I really do think realistically the Vikings could look forward to be 8-8 again. I think they're going to win a lot of their tough home games, but I think they're going to lose a lot of their tough road games. The Vikings, all the talent, real hopeful. Not going to win it, though. Too tough of a schedule, too tough a grind throughout the whole year to get to the playoffs healthy, to get to the playoffs ready to win. Unfortunately, it's tough play for them. Next on the list, I'm going to actually come back to the next, but because we'll just keep it into the division. The Green Bay Packers, I think they got a lot better. I really do. I like what the Packers did this offseason. I think adding the players they added, I think drafting Rashawn Gary was good. Bringing back Devontae Adams, a lot of these players are going to be good. Josh Jackson's one of my favorite corners in the Big Ten. Awesome player. Equanimous St. Brown can be really good. Offensive line-wise, I really have always liked their offensive line. I think you don't hear much about them, and that's for good reason. Geronimo Allison was one of the best, most underrated players. Blake Martinez, solid linebacker. All in all, solid team. Aaron Rodgers is going to have to elevate it a whole lot to win a Super Bowl, though. I look at a lot of these players on this roster, and I don't see Super Bowl champions. The only team you can really do that with in the world is New England. I think their secondary still has some holes. I really want them to be great. Not really. I don't really care much about them. I don't know why I said that. But they're good for football when star quarterbacks are good. You want star quarterbacks in the playoffs. I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs than a lot of the quarterbacks I've talked about on this list prior. I mean, would you rather have Dak Prescott in the playoffs or Aaron Rodgers? Which one's more fun to watch? Would you rather have Carson Wentz or Aaron Rodgers? I'm still going to have to go with Aaron Rodgers. Would you rather have Matt Ryan or Aaron Rodgers? Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers? You get the point now. So there's that. And then another real contender but not going to win, the Bears. Offensively, tons of talent. The Bears roster is filled with talent. And there's a reason they won the games they won last year. You look at their roster, and it starts at the top with Khalil Mack. you keep going through. They signed HaHa Clinton Dix. I really like that. I really like Turek Cohen. Keeping the quarterback room the same with Chase Daniels was awesome for him. Leonard Floyd's awesome. He's there. John Franklin III. He's the quarterback from Florida Atlantic. I'm really excited to see what he does. He's a good athlete. Taylor Gabriel is one of my favorite receivers, the little guy. He will probably have another good year in this offense. He's one of their gadget players. If you're a fantasy football player, some weeks he's going to be big time, some weeks he's not. Big touchdown guy. Eddie Jackson's one of the better free safeties in the league. Offensive line-wise, I think they have a very cohesive unit. Once again, I think that needs to be an emphasized point. Obviously, the Khalil Mack trade paid off in major dividends. They brought Cordero Patterson. And Roquan Smith is only going to get better. I mean, all in all, they have a really good team. So, what does this mean, though? What do you need? Quarterback play, consistent quarterback play. And too many times, Trubisky relied on his legs. And in big moments, you couldn't really trust him to throw the football. And that led to what happened last year with the missed field goal. And they were so close to being truly great last year. I just think I like the Bears. I think they're going to be a really good team. I think a lot of these teams have so much potential next year. But this most recent time around with that field goal loss to the Eagles, I don't think they got that much better in the offseason. And it's all about if Mitch Trubisky can truly take that jump. The Broncos are the next real contender. I think their defense is good. Flacco has too many holes. The 49ers, maybe one day Jimmy G's good. I think they have really good potential. I like what John Lynch is doing there. Going to be good. And then the Texans, and in all honesty, same as the Colts. I think their defense is a little better, but I think their offense is a little worse. Is that fair to say? And then after this quick break, I will be doing Tier 1, the real Super Bowl, potential Super Bowl champs. This episode is brought to you by Freight Saver for all your freight needs. Now back to the show. Follow me at Chris Renne MB on both Twitter and Instagram, and follow MBasement Prod for Mom's Basement Productions Instagram and Twitter for tweets and posts of opinions like these. Alright, sorry for the shameless plugs right in the middle of the show, but a guy's got to do what a guy's got to do. Make sure you follow me for more updates and opinions during and throughout the week, and updates on all things Mom's Basement Productions and my shows. So, starting where we left off, the final tier, Tier 1, potential Super Bowl champs. Now, I've given you an outlook in tiers of what you can expect from all of the other 28 teams in the league. If you don't agree with it, fine. But when I am correct, once again, at the end of the year, like I was last year with the New England Patriots, and like I will be this year with one of these 4 teams, and as we get closer to the season, I will make my surefire Super Bowl prediction. But right now, the 4 teams in Tier 1, the potential Super Bowl champs, I am going to start bottom to top. The first team on this list at the bottom is the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson got paid. And this team has officially moved on to a new era past the Legion of Boom, which is going to be a product of what the NFL has turned to. They've added some low-key free agents to the defense like Nate Orchard and Cassius Clay. The defense is going to be good. I think they found two really good defensive backs in Trey Flowers and Shaquille Griffin. They drafted one of my favorite safeties in the draft, Utah's very own Marquise Blair. If you don't know who he is, he's a really good safety, moves across the field really well. He can play free safety, he can play strong safety, and he likes to hit. They drafted my friend Cody Barden in the 3rd or 4th round. Can't remember, but I've got a new reason to root for him. Offensively, they arguably got the best receiver in the draft in DK Metcalf. And they have 3 tight ends who I like a lot. Adding Mike Iupati to the offensive line. He's a Pro Bowl guard, and he's played for their offensive line coach before. So, that's awesome. I like Chris Carson. I think Rashad Penny's going to be better this year. I think getting Bo Scarborough is also a good pickup to solidify their backfield. And I don't think you can take away from Tyler Lockett. I think he's going to continue to be great. I think they have a pretty balanced receiving core, and if DK Metcalf can be anything of what pundits in the draft thought he can be, it's awesome. I think this roster is filled with role players, and with the winning culture that Pete Carroll brings to Seattle, they were that close to beating the Cowboys last year, and I think they got better this offseason. And I think they're a team to really watch. I think taking a step. I think Bobby Wagner leading the defense. I think the way they're going to play this year is going to be a lot better, more consistent. I think Russell Wilson's going to want to prove to the world that he is the reason the Seahawks won their first Super Bowl. I like Russell Wilson a lot. There's a reason I'm this high on a team. And if I had to bet on one quarterback in the league to carry his team to the Super Bowl, it's going to be Russell Wilson this year. And that's why they're in my 4 potential can win the Super Bowl, 4 potential Super Bowl champs this year. In Tier 1, I really like the Seahawks. If you don't, I think you're stupid, and I think you're going to miss the beat on this one. I think they realistically can win the NFC West at 11 wins or 12 wins. I think the NFC West is going to be a little bit more competitive with San Francisco being better and the Rams being as good as they are. I really like the Seahawks roster, though. They're a team that I think is going to get better. I think, last year they won 10 games, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, they had to play the Cowboys defense, and they were close. They really were. You look at their record, yes, they won 10 games. I think they could potentially get 1 or 2 games better. They lost a couple close ones on the road. I think the Rams are going to get a game or 2 worse record-wise next year. I think it's just something you can sort of bet on when a team wins 13 games. They're going to get 1 or 2 games worse the next year because you have those 50-50 games, and not all those games are going to go the Rams' way again. You take a look at an example like the Rams playing the Chiefs. That game could have easily went the other way. There's a lot of examples like that. I think the Seahawks had quite a few of those. Their 2-point loss to the Rams at home was one of them. I think their 8-point loss to the Chargers was one of them. I think they're going to be great. I think they showed they can dominate. I think those close games against the Rams can flip this year. That close game against the Broncos can flip. Their schedule this year, I think, is a little bit more manageable. If we take a look at it, sucks, stupid internet. Let's go through the list of games. They start with the Bengals, easily winnable. Then they go to Pittsburgh. I think that's a toss-up. Then you play the Saints at home, which is really good for them. I think they beat the Saints at home. You look at their game against the Cardinals, I think they're going to absolutely abuse the Cardinals in Arizona. The Rams, that first game at home against the Rams is going to tell a lot about what the Seahawks are capable of. If they beat the Rams pretty handedly, 2 touchdowns, I think it's really going to show that they are the Super Bowl contenders I see them out to be and the realistic champs. Going into Cleveland's not going to be easy, but I think they can beat the Browns. I think Russell Wilson's better than Baker Mayfield at this moment. That's going to be a game where the Browns are going to try to prove themselves, so it's going to be a tough one at home, but we'll see how that goes. Then they play the Ravens at home. I think they beat the Falcons, Buccaneers, 49ers, get a nice little win streak going. Then they have a tough one against the Eagles. Then I think they beat the Vikings at home, probably lose to the Rams in Los Angeles, beat the Panthers, and then close out the game with probably a win against the Cardinals and a win against the 49ers. So I really do think 11 games is possible. 11 wins, 10 wins for sure. I think they're going to at least be a wild card but have a chance to win the division. I think Pete Carroll's a great coach. I think the Rams are going to have some balls bounce the opposite way, which is why I think this division is going to be a little bit more competitive. But I think this is a 2-team race. I think the 49ers are still a year away or so. I know Jimmy Garoppolo's good. I think the 49ers are going to be one of the more improved teams in the NFL season in 2019, but I still think it's the Seahawks and Rams division to fight for at the top. So that moves me on to the next team that can win the Super Bowl, and that is the Los Angeles Rams. Jared Goff and McVay will just do it again. Like I said, I've already talked about them a little bit, and I really think when you look at their schedule, you got to really think about what made them great last year, what made the Rams great. It was 100% their offense. Did they do enough to improve on the defense? I don't know. The defense is what kept them in the game, though, when it came to playing the Patriots. It was always close. And can Jared Goff take those steps to win a Super Bowl? I have always been a Jared Goff guy. You could ask my brother. Me and him both thought he was better than Carson Wentz. We wanted the Browns to take him. But the Rams' schedule's not easy either. They have to play in Carolina. I think they beat the Panthers to open up the NFL season. Then I think they beat the Saints at home. I think they beat the Browns, the Buccaneers. Then I think they lose in Seattle. I think they beat the 49ers. I think they beat the Falcons. I think they beat the Bengals. Then they lose at the Steelers. I think they struggle against the Bears, but I still think they beat them. The Ravens, probably a toss-up, 50-50 game. Beat the Cardinals. Close game against the Seahawks, coin flip. Lose to the Cowboys, beat the 49ers, beat the Cardinals. So they have probably 11 wins, 10 wins on the schedule if Jared Goff stays healthy. Big if. And they get better because I think Gurley's going to be healthier this year. I think they're going to have a better load management on him this year. And I don't think they need to rely on him as much as Jared Goff keeps getting better. Cooper Kupp getting healthy. He was Jared Goff's favorite target before he got hurt. And pairing him with Cooks and Woods is awesome. It's a really good gang of receivers. Their offensive line's awesome, led by Andrew Whitworth. He's getting older. He probably wants to get one right before he goes out. And I think they're just going to continue with the formula that works. They're going to game plan each team individually. I think offensively, Sean McVay's got it down in this league. I think then you go to the question on if Wade Phillips can bring it like he did last year in a lot of games. And I think he can. I really think the Rams have a schedule that's very favorable for a team of their talent. And I think that's why they're very likely to have a chance at home field advantage in the playoffs. I think they're going to be just as explosive this year as they were last year. The unpredictability of their offense makes them special. And if they can continue to improve on the defensive side of the ball, I know they lost LaMarcus Joyner, but signing Clay Matthews brings in a veteran presence. He's won a Super Bowl. And Eric Weddle is one of the utmost professionals in the league, and he's one of the best free safeties. So I don't think losing LaMarcus Joyner is that big. I think having the DBs remain with Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, Nickel Roby Coleman, I think it's a team that doesn't lose much and adds so much more to it. So the Rams are a real legitimate Super Bowl champ contender potentially. So my number 2 team on the list, and this is the one I think that got the most flack. And a lot of people know that I absolutely despise and hate this team. But with the career I want to engage in, unless I'm a local radio show host in Cleveland, unless I'm a local radio host anywhere but this place, I'm going to have to remain objective. And if I ever go national, I'm going to have to remain objective to maintain the respect I deserve as a reporter and as a radio show and podcast pundit when it comes to the NFL. Hashtag no sources. The next team on the list of potential Super Bowl champions, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, you may think I'm crazy, but the Steelers were 2 games worse than they should have been last year and had a lot of close, heartbreaking losses that they probably could have won. The Steelers, you look at it. Hold on. That's not right. Oh, hold on. My bad. No, you see. God damn it. This is so stupid. Alright, whatever. I'm back. Okay, we're good. So, you look at it. Tied the Browns week 1. Wild, absolutely insane, hilarious. That game could have gone both ways, coin flip. They're going to probably play a coin flip in Cleveland this year. Then you look at the Chiefs, who beat them 42-37. Close game last year. They narrowly beat the Buccaneers, got torched a little bit by the Ravens, then blew out the Falcons. They went on this nice little sixer of a win streak, beat the Browns, beat the Ravens, beat the Panthers, smoked the Panthers, got revenge over Jacksonville, lost to the Broncos, that was a tough one, lost to the Chargers in a close 3-point game, lost to the Steelers once again, or lost to the Raiders by 3 points, beat the Patriots at home, lost to the Saints once again by 3 points, then beat the Bengals by 3 points. So if you didn't hear, a lot of their wins were by a lot, and a lot of their losses were close. So when you look at their schedule and see 9-6-1, it's a little different than most teams. And losing some of those close games definitely can affect the way a team is. And I think this year, getting Le'Veon Bell out and giving James Conner that peace of mind that he is going to be the featured back in the Steelers offense will not only make him a better player, but be more consistent for the preparation that goes into preparing for an NFL game. And then getting Antonio Brown out, who obviously did not want to be there, will make this team 2 wins better at least. There's 11 wins right there. So what's that, 11-4-1 if you just base that off of last year? I think an important thing to realize that Juju Smith's a true number 1 receiver in this league. And I think with James Washington continuing to get better and then adding some of the players they did in the draft, like Devin Bush, Let's look at it. I like Benny Snell Jr. a lot. But Dante Moncrief was a really good move for them. Getting Steven Nelson from the Chiefs. Their offensive line is going to be just as good as it always is. I mean, you look at Alejandro Villanueva, you look at Marquise Pouncey, they're still going to be there. As dumb as Alvin Dupree is, he's a really good player. Cameron Hayward's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. Then you look at adding Devin Bush. That was absolutely huge. Mark Barron adds depth. I mean, it's just, I think they have a team that can really win a lot. You look at their secondary. Joe Hayden's awesome. They're just really deep. They're a really deep team. They have a coach who's been there, done that before. I think they all want to prove themselves. I think as a team, this team's only going to get better this year. I think when you look at teams that are going to make the most drastic improvements, I think the Steelers are probably going to win 12 games this year. Realistically, you look at their 2019 schedule, and you can see that they start off tough with a road game in New England to open up the season at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be awesome. Then they play the Seahawks. There's 2 coin flips right from the start. But then you get at the 49ers, which is a game they can easily win. Then they play the Bengals. They'll win that one. The Ravens at home, they'll probably win that one. Then you get at the Chargers, which will be one of the best games of the season, I think. Then you got the Dolphins win. Colts probably a win. Rams, toss-up. Browns at Cleveland, toss-up. At Bengals, win. At home against the Browns, win. Against the Cardinals, win. Against the Bills, win. Against the Jets, win. And then at the Ravens, probably a win. So let's count that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that's without those 6 toss-up games, which they'll probably win 2 or 3 of them this year, because guess what? They got screwed a lot in those games last year. So I think they're going to be better this year. I think with Big Ben, he's one of the true greats at the quarterback position. I think he really wants to prove, similar to Russell Wilson, different type, but extremely highly motivated because of what transgressed over the season. And I think for any team that was below expectation that can really exceed them this year, it's going to be the Steelers. Then you look at my final potential Super Bowl champ. No, last but not least, and you all know who it is. They're the only team I have failed to mention so far. To recap, the potential Super Bowl champs, the Seahawks with Russell Wilson, the Rams with Jared Goff, the Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger. All 3 have highly motivated quarterbacks for the way their seasons ended last year. Russell Wilson got paid, Jared Goff put up 3 points in the Super Bowl, and Big Ben was dragged through the mud for an entire off-season so far. And lastly, the potential Super Bowl champ, and if I had to pick a team today to win it this year, they'd be my pick right now, and that is the New England Patriots. And yes, it's fun to say this team can do it, this team can do it, this team can do it, but realistically, who can actually do it? You look at their offseason, you look at their Patriots offseason moves, it's pretty phenomenal, to be honest. You look at some of these, they added Michael Bennett for almost no money at all. They drafted N'Keal Harry. They optioned they picked up the option for Josh Gordon, so whenever he's ready to play. They drafted Rodney Kajust, and then they let Trent Brown walk, which is a huge decision, but that's a very Patriot move. You don't overpay for players you can easily replace. They let Nate Soldier go. He's been awful. They let Trent Brown go. We'll see how that works out. Most players who leave New England aren't as good as they were when they were in New England. New England puts their players in a position to win every single year and every single game on the field. And as long as TB12 is back there taking the snaps, this team's going to win at least 11 games. Adding Chase Winovich, a very versatile defensive and outside edge rusher from Michigan, is going to be a very influential move for them defensively. I think he fits right in perfectly with that Patriots scheme. And as much as I don't like him, he's a really good football player, and I think he truly does fit that Patriot way of wanting to win more than anything. Juwan Jones from Vanderbilt's a very smart physical corner. You know, you look at the Patriots roster, and it's just such a balanced roster top to bottom. They paid Julian Edelman, well-deserved. They picked up Demaryius Thomas, who's one of the best. They added Benjamin Watson, a former Patriot great. Sony Michel's back. Patrick Chung still at safety. Philip Dorsett's still playing. Dante Hightower was the leader of the defense last year. James White's still returning. They added Austin Seferian-Jenkins to replace Gronk. You're not going to replace Gronk. It's not going to happen. But their 3 running backs return. They add Damian Harris. They still have Stephon Gilmore. Added Michael Bennett, like I said, on a cheap deal. Devin McCourty. They still have Kyle Van Noy. They still have David Andrews at center. You know, you just look at these players. John Simon, all smart, all very versatile players. All can play multiple positions. There's not a single player on the roster who doesn't sort of fit their role. And every time New England moves off a player, it's for the right reason. And that's what they did once again. They added some tight ends to try to replace Gronk for almost no money. They added one of the best tackles in the draft late. They just took a value pick there, and he's going to replace him. I mean, when you look at their 53-man roster top to bottom, if Josh Gordon can play, if Demaryius Thomas is any semblance of his old self, they added so much with just that Demaryius Thomas move to the offense. Bringing back Benjamin Watson to split time and train these young tight ends and mentor them is going to be insane. You saw what Benjamin Watson offered last year. He still had a ton in the tank. And most importantly, you still have that 3-headed monster in the background. So once we take a look at the Patriots' 2019 schedule, you guys are going to see why they're going to be a true Super Bowl contender. I don't think it's really a question at this point, you know. You look. God damn it, I hate this. Google's so stupid sometimes. You know, the internet's just something, you love it, but sometimes it makes itself a little too complicated. So they start with the Steelers at home. Like I said, I think it's a toss-up game, but I think the Patriots are probably going to win. I think the Steelers need that game a lot more than the Patriots. So this game wouldn't hurt the Patriots losing as bad as it would hurt the Steelers if they lost it. Then they play the Dolphins at the Dolphins early. So I'm going to say that's probably a gimme. Then they play the Jets at home. That's a gimme. The Bills, that's a gimme as long as Josh Allen's a quarterback. Then they play the Redskins, and we've talked about them on my Tier 3 list. They're not a chance team, and there's not a chance they're going to beat the New England Patriots. And they play the Giants at home. It's going to be a disaster for the Giants. Then they play the Jets in New York, and I think they win those games. I think they sweep the Jets this year. I think they sweep the Bills, and I think they sweep the Dolphins and go 6-0 in the division. So there's 6 wins. Then they play the Browns, and I think Bill Belichick likes to put it on the Browns because of how they treated him when they moved to Baltimore. Then they play at the Ravens, which I think is honestly their first game they could realistically lose. Then at the Eagles, another game they could lose. And they play the Cowboys, which is a toss-up, but at home I think they beat the Cowboys. So there's been 2 maybe losses so far. And at the Texans, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, the Dolphins. So not only are they the best team and they return most of their key cogs from last year, they have the easiest schedule of my potential Super Bowl champs, which means they're probably going to go 13-3 or 14-2 and win again. So that is my 3 tiers of the NFL this year. That is how it's going to fall out, and I am excited for this to be proven right. If one of these 4 teams wins the championship this year, the Super Bowl, I will be owed $100 or a shout out by anybody who listens to this podcast. So thank you, and we're going to move on to Magic Johnson and his interview in a second, but your boy needs a snack. Yeah, so I just needed a quick snack. These chorizo tacos I made yesterday, actually they were soy chorizo, and they were delicious. Ate them, they were staring me in the face, had to get another one. Give me the energy to get through the rest of this show. Delicious. Testing my mettle in the kitchen. Been watching MasterChef. Been watching some Iron Chef stuff. Really getting those knife skills down and stuff. Chopping cilantro and stuff, whatever. You know how it is. Yeah, but hopefully those 3 tiers, that last segment, will appease the crowd, the audience, the people who were so bothered by what I said. But before I move on to the next segment, the Magic Johnson segment, I want to just let everyone know that in all sports, going into the season, there's going to be 3 or 4 teams that can truly win a Super Bowl, and then there's going to be 1 or 2 teams that surprises everybody. I think I nailed it with the 4 teams I picked. I think some teams that were really good last year are going to be way worse this year. That's just the way the league works. Not every year can a team be consistently great. That's why there's not dynasties there's only dynasties in sports every so often. There's a lot of parity in sports leagues, but in the NFL, the one thing that isn't really a parity is what New England does. I think all the teams in that second tier, the real hopefuls aren't going to win. 2 of those teams are really going to surprise us and everyone. I think realistically, I could probably pick them out. I think the Cowboys are one of them. I think the Chargers are one of them. I think you go down to the bottom of the list. I think the 49ers can be that team that really makes a big flip of the switch. The Packers, they're getting really slept on. I think that bodes well for Aaron Rodgers. I think they can be a team that's better than they were last year. And then you look at teams that can be worse than last year. You kind of see, I think the Ravens are on that list. I think the Chargers are on that list. I think the Chiefs are going to be a little worse next year. And I think that's sort of how this league works. You got these teams, they go 13-3, then they go 10-6, 11-5. That's fine. They're still going to be playoff teams, but the difference between a Super Bowl champ and a playoff team is a big step. I really do think the 4 teams I chose and the Patriots, the Steelers, the Rams, and the Seahawks can realistically win a Super Bowl, and I'm excited to see if they actually pull it off and do it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that segment. I'm going to find a way to YouTubeify it on a Chris R Talks. So if you don't want to listen to the whole podcast or you just want my 4 teams and then some that just missed the cut, watch out for YouTube either tomorrow or Friday for a Chris R Talks. Funniest thing I saw this week was probably Aaron Rodgers' rant that was all of us about Game of Thrones. Aaron Rodgers went on a rant about the writing of the show and how it was confusing the way it ended, and it seemed like that built up a lot. For me, I didn't mind the ending of Game of Thrones. I thought it really wrapped it up where it started. The show was always about the Starks. It was always going to be about the Starks, and in the end, the Starks were the heroes once again of the realm. I think when you look at what happened to Daenerys Targaryen, the show itself was written for her to be a villain. Did they kill her in the best way? No. Was the scene where the dragon Drogon melted the Iron Throne. Symbolic. It was absolutely symbolic. I understand the people being upset with Bran a couple episodes ago not having once anymore, and then gladly taking the king. You look at what Aaron Rodgers said and what many on Twitter have said about how Bran sort of, I think it's kind of cool how Bran sort of planned out him becoming king. You know, a lot of people complained about it, but you think Bran told told Sam, who told Jon, who told his siblings and told Daenerys, and that was the driving force that ended Daenerys. She's the Mad Queen. Obviously, you saw that when she burned the entire city. Also, spoiler alert, a little late. I'm actually going to have to throw one in here, but doesn't matter. So I thought that was fun. I think it's interesting, the cultural phenomenon that was Game of Thrones. I wish I had added Game of Thrones to my podcast a little earlier, but I wasn't a person who watched it episode by episode, season by season, and there's plenty of Game of Thrones podcasts out there for you to listen to. That would have been far better than me talking about it. Am I glad it's over? No. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. I really do want to see what happens to Arya. What's Jon doing in the Night's Watch? Sansa, Queen of the North, that'd be a fun little story to see how that all turns out. The best part, and this is on my Twitter, I tweeted before the season started, my bold prediction, and I'm really glad I tweeted it because it really led to a pretty funny joke. So let's look at it. Hold on. Where is it? When Sam Tarly stood up in that final episode and said, the leader of the realm is for the people. So why don't you let the people choose? And hold on, I need to find it. I think I skipped it. Yeah, so when Sam stood up and said the people should choose, I almost lost it because of this tweet. Game of Thrones is starting. I'm rooting for a democratic state because the only true free kingdom is democratic, and then all the lords and leaders of I guess their families, I can't remember the term off the top of my head, they laughed at him. So I was like, no way does Sam Tarly pull this off for me. And the kingdoms turn into a democracy. So yeah, that was close. I was almost close to predicting the ending correctly. But you know, that's how it is. The other thing I saw this weekend that was absolutely hilarious before I get to the Magic Johnson was watching that damn horse run by itself. That was absolutely phenomenal. And the best television I've watched in weeks. What was his name? Boat Express tried to win the Preakness without a jockey. I had watched that video at least 100 times. He ran the whole race without his jockey, and it was one of the best things I've ever seen. And he ended up passing 2 horses, which was absolutely phenomenal. I'm actually going to post this to my page right now. I'll probably post this to the Mom's Basement Productions page, but it was just one of the greatest moments in horse racing history. It showed the horse. He just wanted no part of his jockey, and he had no part of his jockey, and he ran the race, and he made us all proud, and he will live as a hero to horses for the rest of his life. Phenomenal stuff, Boat Express. Proud of you. So, the next big story, and probably the closing story of my show, because this is going to sort of been dragging on. Oh, nope, I got 2 more categories, because one's actually really important to me. I already touched on the Game of Thrones finale. I touched on Aaron Rodgers' comments. But, you know, Magic Johnson, He did an explosive interview. And I'm just going to give some notable quotes and then my biggest takeaways. So I rewatched the interview yesterday, and it was way more volatile than I thought it was at first. I thought, Magic Johnson scoring, he's going to say some stuff. But I think it was more telling of what the Lakers were and currently are than anything else. And I'm going to start with my initial takeaway was, of course, Magic Johnson's going to say this stuff. He resigned in infamy. He resigned with no warning. And I honestly see a lot of the reasons why Magic Johnson resigned. I was excited. I think we all knew Rob Pelinka was going to try to take this job at some point. I think when you have two guys vying for the same goals and same position and have different ideas on how to get it done, it's going to always end up being in trouble. But I think when you hear some of these quotes, I got 4 quotes that are really big, and then I'm going to give my takeaways of the whole situation in general. So you look at the first quote I have, and this one is pretty telling of Magic Johnson. He said, "I can't give up all my businesses if I'm going to take this job." He said this to Jeannie Buss. He said, "I make more money doing that, so it's important to me that I keep them." So what's this quote say about Magic Johnson? It says that Magic Johnson was never all into this gig, and to be an NBA president of basketball operations, it takes a lot of work and a lot of grinding, and it's not easy. It's a title that has a lot of big picture to it, and you have a lot of people working under you that need to get their job done. But until then, you still have to come in and work hard every single day. Magic Johnson was not willing to do that, and I could see where a lot of people inside the offices had a problem with this. Quote number 2. "Magic, you aren't working hard enough. You're not in the Laker office. Rob was saying things, and I did not like people saying these things behind my back." I agree. I think saying it behind his back was a little shady, especially when you hear what he said about Rob Pelinka. You look at Magic, and he brings Rob Pelinka along, and he's trying to rein it. He says to Rob Pelinka, this is what he said in the interview: "I'm only going to be here for 3 years. I want you to be ready to take this job." That was Magic Johnson for you. But Rob Pelinka was saying these things, and this is where the betrayal came in. And this is where he said he was betrayed by some of the people who worked closest with him, which is true. I think that is betrayal. I think when you say that stuff behind someone's back, you really have an ulterior motive, and I think it's volatile for the situation. I'm excited to see what Rob Pelinka does, but this was shady, and this is why a lot of the people around the league said for Magic Johnson to not trust Rob Pelinka. I think going off it, I think Magic Johnson was in over his head with his job, but still, when you say this stuff to a person who's your close associate behind their back, it shows. And when Magic Johnson has to find out from people outside the organization that these things are being said, that would be a good reason for anyone to resign from what they did. Quote number 3, "We need to get a better choke." Excuse me, I'm going to start that over a lot better. "We need to get a better coach. First day, we'll think about it. Second day, okay, you can fire him. Third day, no, we should try to work it out." Then Jeannie brings Tim Harris into a meeting, and this is what Magic said about it. Tim wanted to keep him, and they were really good friends. They all liked Luke. And Magic said, "I thought I only answered to Jeannie Buss. Now I got Tim involved I got to go to for this." And that's where the power sort of happened. He was promised a lot of power. He was promised decision-making. And Jeannie Buss did not back that up. And Jeannie Buss had too many people in her ear, which was a big thing that Magic Johnson talked about. The last quote I had, when it's not fun for me, when I don't have the decision-making power, that was it. Well, number one, this job should have never been fun. This isn't a fun job. This is a grinder's job. And I understand that when I don't have the decision-making power, that was it. Because once you feel like your position isn't important, once you feel like your position is meaningless, what's the point of working in that position? So my biggest takeaways, Magic Johnson never put his all into this job, which was my assumption and most people's assumption from when it started and when he got hired. Magic Johnson's a successful businessman, and he knew when his eggs were out of the basket. He knew the writing was on the wall, and they were going to have to make a decision soon. And I don't think he liked being toyed around. I think he's been in enough businesses to know that's not how successful businesses ran. And I think that's very telling of what the Lakers organization is right now. A poorly run organization who is misusing its greatest asset in LeBron currently because of interior issues. So when I look at Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka as a whole and what they represented, it reminded me of when Dunder Mifflin in The Office made Michael Scott and Jim co-managers. One was big picture stuff, one was more day-to-day. I think that was the intention that the Lakers had with Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka. When you look at Michael Scott, he is obviously the face, the big picture stuff, the guy you want talking to your biggest client, because he's the one who made Dunder Mifflin what it is, I guess. And that's sort of what Magic Johnson did. Magic Johnson's the guy you want in the room for free agencies, telling you what the Lakers can really do for you. Rob Pelinka is the guy you want managing the business aspect of things, making the trades, making those decisions. When you have this lack of cohesiveness at the top, it's going to end up being a problem, and that's why both Dunder Mifflin, once they got bought by Sabre, and why Magic resigned. Michael Scott quit. Magic Johnson quit. We'll see how it goes, but it's a very good parallel. So, I think the next takeaway I had was Magic could have worked harder than anyone, but Rob Pelinka still would have wanted the job. It is, to stick with The Office, it's Dwight Schrute in the manager's position. It's Daenerys Targaryen in the Iron Throne. It's the guy from Suits and wanting to be a partner. You know, you just go throughout television history and storytelling history. There's always going to be someone who's vying for your position, and that's true in any profession, in any job. If you're the president of a branch in a major corporation, someone's going to want to be the president of that same branch. So Magic could have worked harder than anyone, and Rob still would have won the job, and Rob still would have tried to find his way to weasel into the position of head decision maker. The next takeaway I had was with Magic was talking about the draft picks, and they did draft really well. They unloaded a lot of contracts to make space for free agents. I think they met those goals and reached them pretty well and worked pretty well together to get there. I think with LeBron expediting that journey to the top and the ascension, it really threw a wrench in the plans that Jeannie Buss had with Luke Walton, that you think you know how it's going to go, and then all of a sudden you're gifted with this genius, in your company, and he just makes it that much better. That's LeBron. He changed the Lakers. They were a 4 seed instantly. They need to do a better job of getting supporting players that fit the style of basketball LeBron plays. I think Lonzo, I think Kyle Kuzma. So that D'Angelo Russell trade landed them Kyle Kuzma. That's awesome. That's epic. I really do think they did a great job with drafting players. I think dumping salary. I don't think Julius Randle's going to be that big of a loss long term. I think Kuzma's a more valuable player. I think Ingram's a more valuable player. I think Lonzo's a really good point guard. And you saw what D'Angelo Russell did last year, but also D'Angelo Russell's 22 years old. Lonzo's going to be 21 this upcoming season. He's still got 2 years to catch up to him. I think when Lonzo played, the Lakers were a better team. And I think the players they have around them with Josh Hart, they drafted significantly well. I think many front offices would be jealous of the players they got in these drafts. I think you need to make a move for a big free agent this year. You guys have heard my shows. You guys have listened to it. You know I want the Lakers to go after Tobias Harris and Chris Middleton. Those are two guys I really think they can get. And I think they could really add a good second and third dimension to the team. You see the value Chris Middleton's added to the Bucks. You see Tobias Harris's versatility. Those are two types of players that can play really well. I think one of the trades that was an absolute major mistake was trading Ivica Zubac to the Clippers. I think that was a horrendous move. Zubac was another one of those draft picks that's really working out. So there's that. The next one, I think Pelinka's more fit for the job than Magic. I think Pelinka's more of a detail-oriented guy, a guy who could manage the day-to-day better. I think he's more of a grinder. He's a top-level sports agent, so that's what they do. They grind. Magic is not going to be done with the Lakers. Magic's always going to support the Lakers. The Lakers were Magic, and Magic was the Lakers. It's a relationship that's never going to die. Magic's still going to sell the Lakers to free agents. Magic's free to move around, and it's no longer tampering. Magic can finally be Magic again. And I think that was a big benefit to the Lakers when he wasn't their president. And I thought they were going to keep some of that same benefit when he was president, but that just ended up not happening. Another takeaway is the quotes kept coming. I said Magic was never all in. We've been over this. Pelinka noticed for sure. And I think the disorganization at the top was discussed by him and evident in that quote about Tim Harris, and that for sure shows the dysfunction. And then you hear me talk last week about how Kurt Rambis is making decisions, Lisa Rambis is making decisions, and I told you my opinion on Kurt Rambis. I don't think he's fit to make any decisions for any basketball organization. Is it a strong opinion? Absolutely, yeah. Then obviously Jeannie has too many people in her ear, and that took away from Magic's power, which is why Magic resigned. I think Jeannie busts so far in over her head for this job that she doesn't even know what to do. She keeps hiring friends and she keeps hiring Lakers people because that's all she knows. She listens to all these people around her because she doesn't have her own vision for the team. When you look at Dr. Buss, the guy who created the Lakers and made them who they are, I thought Jeannie showed some stones. I thought Jeannie really showed some alpha when she fired her brother and Mitch Kupchak, guys who were really vital to those final Kobe championships, but they weren't producing anymore, and that was a big aspect in why they got cut out. And I said the last thing I took away was Magic and Rob could have been great together if the dysfunction at the top was not so adherent to Luke Walton and the other people around her. Jeannie is in way over her head until there is cohesiveness at the top. LeBron is going to waste away the end of his career. And, from a fan standpoint, the only thing I truly care about is LeBron riding off into the sunset with another title or two in his belt. I think they truly do have the potential to get it done. I think the Lakers have the capital. I think with the new draft pick we talked about last weekend on Chris R Talks on YouTube, the draft pick is very tradable. I think teams are going to be interested. I think teams are going to bite. If the Lakers can land a free agent like Chris Middleton, like Tobias Harris, like Kyrie Irving, one of those top-end free agents, they can truly get to the top. And I think if you end up landing a Kyrie Irving, that adds Lonzo to the trade bait, and you trade that fourth pick, Lonzo, Ingram, or Kuzma, depending on which one you think long-term is going to be better. And you get that third superstar in Anthony Davis or someone else, and there's still a couple other options that can go around. You never know what some of these other NBA stars are going to do. They're very unpredictable, but it's going to be fun to watch. So that wraps up the Magic Johnson talk. I really do think the Lakers are in trouble. To conclude this, I think while Jeannie Buss has that Lakers heart, she wants to be great for the Lakers, she just hasn't really had it in her to do it. I think she's making too many decisions based on what other people think. I think they need to have, the players-only meeting, but for the top-level people. I think they need to get people out, and I think they need to just run this thing through Rob Pelinka. And I think Jeannie Buss needs to stop being such a hands-on owner when she's so bad at it. Once these people get out of the way and allow the professionals to do their job, it's going to make it work, and the Lakers can be good again. So NBA talk will continue on Chris R Talks. I'll be talking the 2 NBA playoff series and probably a little bit more on this Magic Johnson situation. But the last thing I want to talk about today is the NCAA Compensation Committee. It's a great step. It's an awesome start. I think everyone and their mother knows it's about time. I think compensation when it comes to the NCAA is extremely complicated because players are compensated with an education, with facilities that not every other student gets. They have so much more. They get to choose all their classes first. They get priority in a lot of those ways, and they don't pay for school. So one of the biggest problems in America right now is student debt, and leaving school without any student debt is such an advantageous thing that a lot of people don't understand. And I think if you ask any other college student if they would like to not have any student debt to play a sport, I think they'd take it. So I think that's a very underappreciated aspect, the education being paid for and the services that not all students get. So this all started when Governor Mark Walker of North Carolina proposed a bill that would take away the NCAA tax exemption in the state for not allowing players to use their name and likeness to profit. And that's what I think that's the difference. I don't think the schools should pay the athletes, okay? I really don't. I think the athletes should be able to use their name and likeness. So if I was a star player at Ohio State right now and a booster wanted me to be in a commercial, I should be allowed to do that, to sell that, and they should be able to pay me whatever they want because this is the United States and it's a free market economy. When you look back in college football history and you see the most famous shirt of all time worn on a sideline, the National Communist Athletic Association, the NCAA Brian Bosworth shirt, it's true. And I think it's criminal that players can't use their name and likeness to make money. I think when you look at it, they should be allowed to get paid for being who they are. Look at Johnny Football. He could have made so much money in college for being Johnny Football. Tim Tebow could have been raking in money for his likeness. Even so, when you look at an Ohio State player, you look around the Columbus area, the Bourne brothers, they all played at Ohio State, and they all own a garbage disposal place, like a dumpster company. So they don't do the trash trucks, obviously, they just do dumpsters. And they rent out dumpsters, and it's a really good business. And I don't think they could have started this business anywhere but Columbus, but starting it in Columbus, people know their name because they played at Ohio State and they're using their name and likeness after their career. But why shouldn't they be able to use their name and likeness while they're in their university? If the NCAA doesn't want the schools to pay them, and if the NCAA doesn't want schools paying them out of pocket, because guess what? Ohio State is worth $1 billion, their football program. You look at Alabama's football program, worth a ton of money. You look at Clemson. These people are going to be able to pay a lot of players, and a lot of money that other schools can't. And when you look at the way schools would allocate the funds, they'd start canceling out school teams that don't make money so they could pay the best players to play for their teams that do make money. And that's the difference, Ohio State's football team funds the entire university. Alabama's football team brings in so much revenue for the school. And the one thing I've been saying a long time is Ohio State's brand's a lot bigger than any player that's ever going to play for it. That's just plain and simple a fact. It's very rare you get a player that supersedes the brand of the school. You look through history, you've got the Bo Jacksons, you've got the Herschel Walkers, you've got the Hopalong Cassidys, the Howard Hopalong Cassidys, you've got the Edgar Allan Poe guy all the way back in the early 1800s who was bigger than Yale football. You look at these types of things. And there's always going to be players that supersede these expectations, and they're going to be bigger than the school. Johnny Manziel's a recent example. Marcus Mariota at Oregon. But the brands of these schools are far more valuable than any player's name and likeness. And if a player wants to have a YouTube channel with subscribers, they should be allowed to make money off it, and that's where they got it. So I was reading this article from Sports Illustrated. I wish I remembered the name of the author on it. But he said this committee sounds like they want to follow the Olympic style, which is where players can't be paid by the university. So it would be like the players can't be paid by the United States in the Olympics, but rather outside sources. So shops, newspapers, advertisements, that type of things, online ads, whatever. If you own a car dealership, having a player, an example right now would be Chase Young. If they wanted to have him in a car commercial, they'd be able to and be able to pay him for being Chase Young. I don't think universities should ever be allowed to provide athletes with students, but I do think students should be allowed to make money. I don't think boosters should be allowed to salary them. I don't think it should be an incentivization. I think there should be strict rules in place on what is and isn't okay for players, but I do think they should be able to make money off their name and likeness. And then a big worry that's coming out is competitive equality on the football field and what teams will be hurt by it. Every single team that isn't Ohio State, Alabama, or that level of a school is not going to get hurt by it because guess what? From a fiscal advantage, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, Clemson, USC, Washington, LSU, they already have such a fiscal advantage that it's going to be tough. But there's going to be examples of teams like SMU when they got the death penalty able to find a way to pay players more money, and that's going to be crazy. So I think it's finally time, and the biggest story from it is the chance for the NCAA football series to come back so I can start running up the score with my Buckeyes on my friends. And it really, really is exciting. I can't wait. So that's definitely the best part of this whole conversation for me as a person. But it's also great for athletes and individuals of the future. So that's exciting. I think it's about time. I think everyone thinks it's about time. There's tons of articles about it if you want to go look up more on this and the likelihood of it. It's led by Ohio State's Gene Smith, so they've obviously picked the right guy to be in charge. Go Bucks. And that's going to be it for this show. Look out for my newest YouTube video coming either tomorrow or Friday. And then I need to tell you all one last thing. My new goal in life to add, what's the word? Like, you know, I always forget these types of words, but, you know, I want to become a beer cicerone. I didn't forget that word. They are, if you've ever heard of a sommelier for wine, it's that for beer. A beer cicerone is a guy who tastes beers, rates beers, and can legally serve beers. So, it's an organization. It's a certification program. I can create a free account whenever I want. The initial test is $69, and any remake is $69. That's nice. No prerequisites. Exam detail, 60 questions. That's to become a basic. So let's look at the levels. There's a certified beer server, first level certification for those who work with beer. Level 2, professionals dedicated to beer, certified Cicerone. Then advanced Cicerone, a designation of distinctive expertise and tasting skill. Then a level 4 master Cicerone, the ultimate test of beer expertise. And by the time I'm 30, I will be a master Cicerone. This will add not authenticity, because we're obviously very authentic on pints, but it will add God damn it, what's the word? It will be it'll add a sense of professionalism to the beer tastings we do, and add to the beer tasting show itself once we get that on YouTube. So look out for that. And once again, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ChrisRenneMB, and then follow Mom's Basement Productions on Twitter and Instagram at MBasementProd, and like us on Facebook at Mom's Basement Prod. Thanks for listening once again. Don't forget to subscribe and rate to the show. Look out for pints coming soon. Look out for my YouTube channel. Like and subscribe on that. Thanks for listening. Talk to you all next week.